So you want to start a machine shop. So the biggest and hardest decision, in my opinion, is machine selection. Where do you start? What kind of machine do you need to get going? And what is really going to kickstart your success and hopefully growth in your machine shop? Hey folks, welcome back to American Made. My name is Justin from Zealous Manufacturing. So I've got 5 topics that I think all machine discussion should be based around. And what those are is cost, capabilities, serviceability, options that the machine has or a machine builder has, and infrastructure. Let's start with cost. So the 3 questions I always ask myself, whether it's at my day job or here at Zealous Manufacturing, is will we purchase this machine outright, aka cash purchase? Do we have a customer base or a product base for that? And will you finance the machine? I personally have always operated on a bootstrap mentality. So there was no investor, there's no business partner, nobody's funding Zealous Manufacturing. So I wanted to make sure I could purchase the machine outright. I have a philosophy, and I'm open to hear what you guys think as well. If you finance a machine, that machine, when it lands, has to run. I think if you finance a machine, because there is that month, every month, the bank or whoever's lent the money is going to ask for their payment. They don't care if you have work or not. So that's why I like to purchase outright as much as possible. So if a machine is paid for and it's sitting there, month goes by and you don't have any work, the machine is paid for. It doesn't matter. Does it suck? Absolutely. Another topic on that is customer base. I don't know if it's true, but a lot of people say if you build it, they will come. That works to an extent, in my opinion, but I don't know if it works for sure. So if nobody knows you exist, nobody knows what you're doing, you don't have a defined kind of what you're going to operate or how you're going to operate, it's going to be a hardship for you. You know, there are shops that they worked at a company, that company has said, hey, this customer, we really don't want to work with them anymore. If you're working a day job, always check with your employer first. But there are cases where you can do those things. Some shops, especially if you work for a small shop, they like that. I personally believe if you're running a company and you've got somebody that has a, I'll call it a side hustle, they're machining parts in the garage, you should encourage that. It brings that entrepreneurship mentality to your shop. That's just my opinion. Financing a machine, I'm going to be honest, don't have a lot of expertise in that area. As you grow with that bank, they're going to be easier to lend that money. That's just how banks work, right? That's about all I can say on that topic of finance. Capabilities of a machine. There's, anything from 3-axis, 4-axis, 5-axis. I'm going to break it down into some subcategories that I think and what I personally based everything off of. One of the things that's a big thing is what are you going to run on that machine? Is that manual machine as efficient? No. But did you need to spend $250,000 on a machine that you didn't need to? That's the thing you see a lot of times is people will go and they buy something they don't need. Don't try to keep up with the Joneses, especially when starting from scratch. Buy what you need, make sure it's paid for, and grow. Make that machine make money for you, and then buy the next machine, buy the next size up once you outgrow it. For me, a lot of the parts I run, borderline probably the extent of this machine, but when you're in that growth and you're bootstrapping to get by, you don't have an option. A lot of the parts I run would be great 5-axis parts, but when the job is $4,000, and it's done and you never see it again, it doesn't make sense to go and buy, again, a $250,000 machine. Once you know that, you can kind of tailor what your machine is for that. Now, one thing I will say is try to buy the next size up, because before you know it, especially if you're doing job shop work, so Zealous is about 80% job shop, 20% our own products. When you run job shop work, you're gonna get a job and you're gonna look at it like, great, doesn't fit on my machine. Can I figure out how to do it? Not the most efficient way, but you can do it. You probably won't make a ton of money because you have to putz with it, but always buy the machine up if it's within budget. I'm not saying if your machine's 30 grand and you say, well, the next size up is 60 grand, probably not worth it. That's where you got to make that decision. Travels of a machine are important. Like I said, X, Y, Z. What are you going to be able to run? Is your intended product going to run in that? So this item here starts out as 9 3/4 by 5
But because I only have 18 inches in travel, in the X, I can't run 2 parts lengthwise. So I could get nifty. I think when I run these the next time, I'm going to make a fixture that allows me to better hold, so I don't have to use these mod vice styles, because you can see I lose quite a bit here. So I've got 11 inches in the Y, so I run a 3/4 tool around this. So in order to get it, I wouldn't have enough travel to run 2 stacked up. So I got to run 1 at a time. Uh, Not ideal, but not the end of the world. You can see I keep it very low to the table just because I do have that carousel or umbrella, sorry, not carousel, style tool changer. So got tons of room here. As you can see, no issues there. On the other machine, it becomes somewhat of an issue. So here, if you can see that, so in the Z, right, if this umbrella on this machine were to come in to change, obviously I'd hit and we'd have a big issue. So something to think about. So what I do is I always set my part way out of the way. So here you can see here it is. Once that tool changer comes in to change, it's not going to hit or it's not going to be an issue. So when you're running taller parts, I've got another vise that's actually even taller. Sometimes what I have to do is I actually have to rotate the vise 90 to put it in there, allow my big part. So my other vise has got a 3-inch back, then the jaws, and then if I have a 5-inch round, I blow the Y travel here. So I have to turn it 90 degrees to run it in this machine. So just something to think about when you're thinking about machine travels.
Spindle speed is another one for me. And you're going to hear the theme. What are you intending to run? For me, it's mostly aluminum. It's prototype. Right, I need that spindle speed for the aluminum. I need to get nice finishes, prototype, small production runs. Now, if a job came through and it was hardened, D2 steel, my machines don't have the torque. My machines just aren't capable there. That's where you kind of look at spindle speed, horsepower, torque. They kind of all work together if you think about it. So you could have a 50 horsepower spindle, but if your torque curve is, all your torque is at the very low end and you have a 20,000 RPM spindle, right? It just doesn't make sense logically, right? Because all of your power is at that low end. Definitely look at the torque curves and the power curves of your spindle, of whatever machine you're looking at. It'll tell you where your sweet spot is. So I think that's a crucial part in getting the basis of this decision down. Next category that I like to discuss in capabilities is the operator interface. You'll hear people say they like FANUC. You're going to hear people that say they like Haas interface or PathPilot or Mach 3 or Siemens. The list goes on. What you'll see in a lot of shops is once they have that system or operating system that they like, they go with that for every machine purchase, and that's smart. So I always say, get what you know, or get what you're familiar with, or you're comfortable with learning. All of this operating systems are they all operate in a similar system, right? It's all G code, M code, etc. Are there CAM posts readily available? That's a big one that I think is becoming basically not a topic anymore. You can pay for a post, but there are some cases where you're going to hear, I had to tweak a post because my machine has this feature and the standard post in the CAM software doesn't know that or understand it. So something to definitely think about, but I'm not saying it's a game changer. The next main topic for me, bootstrap mentality, is serviceability. I can't tell you how important this is to me. Are parts readily available? What's the lead time on the part? Are parts expensive? Some of these really high-end 5-axis German and Japanese machines, parts are in Germany or Japan. They don't have a warehouse. They don't have a service tech here. That's something I don't think a lot of people think about. They say, this is a really nice machine. It's going to last forever. Everything breaks. Can you replace the part yourself? Do you need to have a service tech? Do you have to have a contract with the machine builder? Those are all things I've seen in the industry where you can't even service the machine if you wanted to. Both of my machines are 100% serviceable by me. I can buy the parts. So there's been times where job's hot, it's got to get through. I had a Z motor go out. I had a X motor go out on me. And I called them up and said, hey, here's my credit card info. Can I come pick it up? And they'd say, yep, it's in the Milwaukee location. Great. I've replaced the spindle on that smaller machine. I could probably change a spindle in, I'd say, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And that's a big thing for me. I can get this machine torn up, put the new item in, get it back in, dial everything in, check sizes, make sure everything's running true, and be back up and running. The big thing with serviceability for me is, can you afford downtime? I think this is so often overlooked. I've worked in shops where we had to run 24/7. When you have that case, you're gonna buy a machine that is reliable, that doesn't have as many issues, and then you're just gonna run it. You're gonna try and plan for downtime, but if you really can't afford it, that's where you can run into some issues. Everything will break. That is a guaranteed. Any mechanical system will break. I encourage you to reach out to other people, ask them about their experiences with machines. Only you will know your business, and only you can make that decision. Options on a machine, I think, are crucial. What are you intending to run? If you don't need all the options, you can save money and not get it. Is your machine able to add options later? So the big one you always hear about, through spindle coolant, 4th and 5th axes, capabilities. Can you add it later? If not, can you get it pre-wired in? Can you get it ready to run that? So if you don't need it now, but you might need it in the future, can you get it added later? My machines are both completely modular. That machine didn't have a tool changer. Added a tool changer. That used to be a stepper motor machine. It now has servos on all the axes. It used to be a straight shank collet. It's now a BT30 collet or spindle. So that's what I mean with that modular ability with these. Kind of goes back to that, I can change the motor out myself because it's not overly complicated. A lot of the times, like I said, big ones are through spindle coolant, 4th and 5th axes. I think a lot of companies are now giving you the ability or asking the questions ahead of time. They'll pre-wire it in. You know, it might not have, it might be just a simple add the rotary, add the high pressure pump for your through spindle coolant. Everything's there, but I think where a lot of companies are now getting to is you're starting to see that real big drive for passive income. I don't think anything's passive income. There's still going to be work there. But a lot of these companies are now stating, you know, it's a feature that they go in and the computer wizard's way above my pay grade. No, I can change this bit from 0 to 1 and now your 4th axis system comes up on your interface or things like that. So those are things you kind of have to watch out for. So for me, my next machine, if you follow me on Instagram, you've heard me joke about it. It's gotta have a top tool mount or a side mount carousel. The umbrella is great as long as you have Z axis height. A lot of my parts, I'm programming a G30 or manually programming for different tool changes. It's just clunky. I'd like to get away from that in the future. So I'm gonna have to have a top or a front mount or a side mount carousel on my next changer. Tool positions is kind of critical. For me, a lot of the cases is if it's a repeat part, I know I'm gonna run it again in the future. And say I need 11 tools and I only have 10 spots. What I'll often do is I will find a way to make another tool operate and do the job that I need. Probing is another concept in that options category. Do you need a probe? There are a ton of shops that operate without a probe. So do not think you have to have a probe. You don't. Now, if you're doing a lot of weird parts that might not have flat surfaces or things, you might want a probe, but what are you intending to run? If you know you need it and you want to pick up off some goofy features, get the probe ahead of time. Tool setters, I hinted at it in the machine shop tour video. I'm self-taught. So while some people have went to school, they learned all the different tricks and fancinesses, when it starts coming to like the taper contact and the spindle and where that line is and setting the tool heights, it's just easier for me to say, nope, I'm just going to get a tool setter. My machines, it's not that expensive. Most machines nowadays, it's not that expensive. So I like that. I think tool setter is one of those things that most companies are now just defaulting to having one. So I like it. I want to know your opinions on tool setters and what you like. Oftentimes your tool setter is going to be in your travel, so don't forget about that. The last main topic I want to discuss is infrastructure. What power do you have running to your shop? What size is your shop? I'm in a very odd case. We have 60 amp single phase power. The city runs 200 amp to everywhere. So we have 200 amp running to our house. We have a 100 amp meter, 100 amp panel, and I run 60 amps out here to my garage shop. And I've got a 100 amp panel that's just metered down to 60. So the weird case is everybody says, we'll just upgrade to 200 amp because there's literally 100 amp. So I said, great. I'm going to look at what it's going to take to get 100 amps out here. Then I can start thinking about different machines. And one of the funny things is it's literally like 15 grand. So for 15 grand, I have to get a meter, which the meter is like, I think it's like $900, a new panel, which is $300 to $400. And I'm really paying for someone to climb up that pole, turn the power off because they have their licensed master electrician. And that's what a majority of what you're paying for. So it's like, it's been a year or so since I looked into it. It was like 10 to 15 grand was the prices I was getting. I can imagine it's probably gone up a little bit now. So I said, that doesn't make sense. The header on my garage door to even get in here, I think is like 88 inches. And it's up slope. So you're going up a slope and then there's your 88 inches. So getting a machine in here will be tricky. Starting to think about that. I looked at a machine where I'd have to remove the Z-axis motor, all the cabling for the Z-axis. I'd have to remove the tool changer ahead of time. Then they'd have to bring it in. Then they'd have to pay a tech to do it all. I'd have to cut a hole in my ceiling to get that Z-axis up there. Not saying it's impossible, but it's something you should think about, especially when you're thinking about buying a machine and bringing it in. And I'd have to spend the 10 to 15 grand to get the power to run it. Concrete is usually a discussion for a lot of people. I've got giant expansion cracks. I'll show you those guys in a second. As long as you're not straddling it, you're probably okay. When you start to get to the really high end, super fast rapids, you need a stable base. That's where you should think about it. One other thing that's somewhat overlooked, I'm in Wisconsin. Does your shop have heat? I know it sounds silly, but we had to insulate. We had to add heat. City would not give us a permit to run a natural gas line to here. So now it's propane. We've got 200-gallon tanks. When it gets really cold here in Wisconsin, I'm probably 100 pounds every 10 days. So, and that's to keep the shop at 50, 55. So that's kind of what I think about when it comes to buying a machine. I wouldn't take anything back. Are there things I would change? Sure. You don't know until you try it. So to wrap up, 5 topics I think are crucial when you're thinking about a machine, especially starting from scratch and the bootstrapper mentality. Cost. That's something that you have to decide what you're comfortable with, what you can do. Capability of the machine, serviceability, to me is probably one of the most crucial because serviceability can really tie into all the other items. Options of the machine, how extravagant do you get? How minimalistic do you need to be? Especially that's something only you can answer for your business. And infrastructure, something to think about. I really hope this has helped make the decision of buying a machine a little bit easier. It's never going to be easy in my opinion. It's going to be a very hard decision. I encourage you, reach out. There's so many tools nowadays. You can comment on this video, ask me what you think, or what you would have done or what you have done. I love hearing those stories. The other thing is social media is huge. I mean, you can send a message to anybody. Can't guarantee they're going to read it, but you never know. The connections you could make, there's just a lot that goes into this decision of starting your own machine shop. My joke is I am the real life Tommy Boy. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. You'll laugh forever. Took me 8 years to graduate with an engineering degree. So yes, 1 degree, 8 years. I was working full time. I prioritized work over school. I wasn't really big in school. You know, I went to school with all the really smart kids and I was just average, but I knew how to take practical applications and make them work. So if I can do this, anybody can do this. I promise you that. I want to see everybody start their shop, chase their dreams, get after whatever it is they want to do. So if I can help, let me know. In any way, drop a comment, hit me up on social media, whatever. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing all the reviews. I look forward to seeing you guys get going, starting it, your feedback, and hope to see everybody have a great time.